Welcome to the training, Turning Website Visitors into In-Person Guests. I'm Justin Nava, and I'm going to be sharing with you my church website method that we use to help churches bring more people to church to hear the gospel and make disciples. And most of those people come because of the website. I'm going to show you in a second. You're in the right place if you want more people coming to your church. You want more church guests, church visitors, whatever you want to call them. If you want to grow the kingdom and make an impact in your community, you're in the right place. If you want more people to see your church online, over 90% of people, when they want to make a decision, they go to Google first. So if you want more people to find your church online, this is the right place for you. If you want more people to come to your church because you made a good first impression online, meaning you don't want them to come to church in spite of your website, you want them to see your website and you want to make the best first impression, this is the place for you. And lastly, and most importantly, if you want God to do something big in your ministry and you know that the internet is one way that he's calling people to you, again, you're in the right place. And I'm going to share with you in this training here, the Nava Church website game plan. This is something that I've created over the years, and I've distilled it down into 3 simple steps, and I'm going to share with you today. And essentially what this game plan does is it helps you go from disorganized online to irresistible. All right. Every church needs a website that brings people to church. When people want to make a decision, they go online and they form their first impression of you online. And so you need to have a website that accurately reflects your church, creates an irresistible message that people can't help but say, I want that. And then it needs to nurture people to come in. But that's very hard to do on your own. And so today's training, I'm going to walk you through the 3 steps: foundation, construction, and optimization, that gets you a new website that's going to be a ministry asset for your church. And if we haven't met before, my name is Justin Nava. I've been doing church websites since 2012. I created the first church website. I'm going to share with you. I'm going to share that with you in a second. But if we haven't met before, I take full responsibility. I founded Nava Church Marketing, and I now run an agency helping churches across the U.S. create online presences that bring people to church so they can make disciples. And even though it might sound easy, what I'm about to share with you, I'm going to tell you it wasn't always easy. I told you I made my first website in 2012. That's because in 2011, and about 150 pounds ago, I proposed to my then girlfriend. And at that time, I was still an intern, making an intern salary. And I was actually making a pretty good intern salary, but it certainly wasn't what I needed to be making as a husband. So my church, I went to them and I said, I need to be full-time. And they offered me the position of IT and media director. And so I did. And that was my first office, staring at my first desk phone with my nice yellow legal pad, wondering, what am I going to do? And my first assignment was our church website. Here it is, right here. You can see it. It was built in Microsoft Publisher. And I think, like many of you today, I had no idea how to edit the site. I had no idea what to put on it. I wanted something new for the church. Actually, the church leadership wanted something new for the church. And I actually had no idea what I was doing. I felt like a fool. I spent 6 months and several $1,000s of the church's budget trying to figure out how to make a good website. I bought websites, templates, training. I even went to the local community college. I didn't learn nothing, by the way. But after a lot of trial and error, after the church paid me to learn how to make a website, I finally had a website I could be proud of. And as you can see here, it wasn't anything special. I actually had to go into the Internet Archives to find an old iteration. I don't know if this is what we launched, but this is what I was able to get. And something happened. People started coming to our church because they found us online and they saw that our church could welcome them based on that website's first impression. And within 3 months of launching that website, for our church, this was a lot. 13 families joined the church. And of those 13 families, 12 of them said that they went to our website first and they felt like they could trust their kids with us. They liked the preaching. This is before live streaming. And they felt like they could belong at our church. Now, fast forward, the pastor of that church left And his new church basically asked me to do their website and do something similar for them. And when I did that, the network talks, and I started building websites for others. And that's kind of what led me to find out that this works. I have Pastor Victor in South Florida who told me they were getting 3 guests a month when we started working with them. This month, they're averaging 30 guests a month, all finding them on the web first and getting a great first impression. I'm actually going to show you his website during this training. Pastor Ken was that pastor that I told you got called away from our church and asked me to do the same thing for him. And people are finding his church online. And Pastor David flat out told me, hey, people are coming. He told me the same thing my first church told me. People are seeing our website and deciding to come, using that as the decision maker to come visit. I want to get you some of these same results, and that's what this training is going to show you. Now, I do want to make sure we're all clear on this. This is just a piece of the puzzle. I have an entire advertising or communication, marketing, whatever you want to call it, method. We call it the Nava method because I'm the most humble person you'll find. And this is one part of it, but we're going to zoom into this one part because if you have the website, you have the core piece to communicate who your church is and bring more people to church. So I'm going to share with you the 3-step system we use to create irresistible websites for churches. And we're at the point now, I really want to say like clockwork because we have a process. I'm going to show you that process here. It's in 3 simple steps. So to make sure we're on the same page, I want you to imagine what it would be like if you had a 24/7 missionary that's going out into your city, not just telling people about your church, but helping them understand that the church hears their needs, that Jesus is calling them to him, and they walk them to your door to come experience what God has for them at your church. If done properly, and you follow what I share with you here today, your website will function like that missionary. It will be doing ministry 24/7, inviting people to your church, nurturing them to take a next step with you. If they're searching for churches, that search will stop. If they heard about you, they're checking you out to see if you're worth visiting, will be validated, and they will plan a visit with you. And it could all happen while you're asleep, out of town, or just on a day off. So church websites aren't what they used to be, and this is where a lot of people get in trouble when they try to redesign or fix or update their church website. See, it used to be all about the design. Back when I started, the church website, it just helped to have one. And then eventually, in the late 2010s, you had to have a really well-designed website. But that's not necessarily the case anymore. Because as you see during the Super Bowl commercials, anyone can get a pretty website for $20. And if every church has a pretty website, there needs to be something else that happens that convinces or persuades people to visit your church. It's not the design. It used to also be about the software. Again, everyone out here is preaching their software is the thing that's going to get you to church. It doesn't matter the tool that you use to drive the nail in the wall. It doesn't matter if you use a hammer. It doesn't matter if you use, like I do, the bottom of the drill because I'm too lazy to get the hammer. I just turn the drill over and I just start smacking the hammer in if I got to hammer something in while I got the drill in my hand. All right. You could use a mallet if you have to. It's not the tool. Now, some tools will help you a little bit easier, but that's not the focus of today's training because what I'm going to share with you today is software independent. It's software agnostic. Doesn't matter what software you use. What I'm sharing with you today will work on any software. Now, you have to know how to use the software, but it's no longer about the software. There's no single best software anymore. Just get this and your church website will be fixed. No, they all pretty much do 90% of the same thing, but it's how you use it. And if you've ever tried to teach your kids how to use a hammer for the first time, you and I will, you know that you have to know how to use it. I'm going to share with you not the how-to technical stuff, but the how-to persuasive communication aspect of the website. And it used to be about the church. People used to just know, let's go to church, right? Sundays, the driveways used to be empty. Now they're just as full as they are on Saturday. School events used to not happen on weekends because it was church time. That's not the case anymore. Businesses used to not open up after lunchtime because there was no business before then because people were in church. It's not the case anymore. People aren't inherently going to church. People don't inherently know the church is the answer to their needs. And so when someone visits your church website, they don't necessarily are going to be persuaded to visit your church because of how great your church is. They will be persuaded to visit your church because of how well you understand them and how well you can call them to take a next step. People don't make decisions based on information anymore. They make decisions based on information. And so if your church website isn't working right now, if you feel like it's just sitting there wasting money, wasting time, it could be because you were focused on the design rather than the content inside, which we'll talk about. It could be because you were sold on the software and you just don't know how to put it to use. Or it could be because your church website is too much about the church and not about the guest. So I'm going to show with you in this training here how to go from disorganized to irresistible using my church website method, and go from a generic church to one that gets people to say, I want that. And it's going to happen in 3 simple steps: foundation, construction, and optimization. First step is foundation. When you don't have a foundation, your website is extracurricular. It's not part of the mission of the church. If your mission is to make disciples, you make disciples, your website should be a part of that. If your mission is to glorify God and turn your city into a God-fearing, God-honoring city, your website should be a part of that. But if you don't have a solid foundation, your church website's not going to work for your church because it's not going to be aligned with your church. If you don't have a proper foundation, your website's going to be disorganized. You're going to have lots of information on some pages and sparse information on other pages. It's going to be hard to navigate. And if you don't have a solid foundation, you're going to have generic content. It's not going to capture your culture. It's not going to capture your environment. And it's certainly probably not going, I shouldn't say certainly, probably. It's certainly not going to speak to where this potential guest fits in God's redemption story. You're going to look like vanilla ice cream. And when given the choice, people want to have something that they desire. And if they desire hope, community, better faith, strength to endure a new season in life, your church website should be there to show them the way to find those things. But if you just talk about the church, you come across like any other church, they will judge you based on the other churches they know. And that judgment only goes one way, not good. So here's how you can have a solid foundation without getting bogged down in all the overwhelming decisions we just had to talk. How do we get it to fit into the mission of our church? What pages do we need? What do we need to have on our website? Here's what you have to do. You need to have a solid foundation, and that starts with casting the vision. You need to know what your website should do for your church. Should it bring more people to events? Should it bring more people to worship? Should it bring more people just straight to Jesus? You have a more evangelical website. What obstacles does it need to overcome? Okay. How does it assist in the mission of your church? And importantly, answer the one question. If someone could only do one thing on your website, only one thing, like imagine you went to a restaurant and you're only allowed to order one thing. What would you want that one thing to be? What do you want the one thing for someone to do on your website? You need to know that one thing because all roads are going to lead to that one next step. And then you can build a framework. Okay. You got to have your core pages set. These are the 5 pages every church website needs: your homepage, your next steps page, an about page, a ministries page, and a give page. You got to know that those are your core pages. Then you can start to focus on the secondary pages. Things like your leadership page. That stuff can be on the about page. What we believe. Churchy people are going to want to see your what to believe page, but if you want to have an outreach, kingdom growing website, you don't want to just focus on transferring people in. You want to be focused on saving the lost. So the what we believe is good to have. It's not core. You should also have, you can also have ministry landing pages, events pages, sermon pages, resources, all that good stuff. These secondary pages are secondary, meaning if you don't have them, you don't need them. The core pages are what's necessary. We've helped churches grow from 20 to 60 with just those 5 pages. We've helped church plants explode from like 5 to 50 with just 1 page. It's not the quality, it's not the quantity, it's the quality. And then you have your auxiliary pages, stuff that links to other websites, stuff that's other sources, membership documents, wedding policies, all that stuff. Don't worry about that stuff. That comes later. But once you have your framework, you know the pages you're going to have. And maybe you don't need some of the secondary pages, and that's fine. Then you can create your soul-winning content. I like to picture it like you're planting a church. There's kind of two options when it comes to your new church building when you're planting a church. You can move into an existing building, or you can draft up plans to build your own building, and you know the facilities that you need. You know that you need a fellowship hall next to the kitchen, next to bathrooms, which maybe connects to the worship center, and there's a removable wall in the middle. You know you need children's classrooms with one secure entrance. Whereas if you move into an existing building, you may not get all those facilities, or it may not be laid out the way you want it to. So to bring it back to the website, if you craft your content first, meaning if you know what your website should say for each page, then you can take your design and make it match your content rather than trying to fit your content into someone else's design. You're going to have problems. You're not going to know where to put everything. You're going to have stuff junked up together or not be where it belongs. Starting with your content, you'll be able to craft the website around that, supporting the message rather than the design. Because remember, it's no longer about the design. It's about the content, the message inside. So you want to craft you-focused content. You want to craft a content that speaks to the person, and you want to give them a guest journey, meaning that one thing you want people to do, all roads should lead to that one thing. For many churches, it's plan a visit or see what to expect. And then you want to have scannable content. You don't want to have paragraphs. This isn't a bulletin. This isn't a newsletter. Scannable content. And I'll show you an example here. This is one of our clients, Stonewater Fellowship. Let me share my screen here. Some of the layout isn't going to match perfectly because of the share screen, but you can see here, we've got unique content. No other church website has content like this. We have a very simple homepage, which we'll talk about in a second. We have very simple pages up here where you can plan a visit or go to next steps. And then we've got the secondary pages here in the navigation. But all roads are going to lead to the plan a visit page, where we want people to let us know you're coming. And they can see all the information they need to know about Sunday as well, of course. Okay. So when you have the framework, you know this church wants more people coming to church on Sunday. So we are going to nurture people to plan a visit all throughout the site. It's you focused. We help you live out your faith 7 days a week. We want you to connect with others in ministry. You shouldn't have to face life alone. When you have you-focused content, meaning it's no longer about the church, but how the church helps the person. And yes, it's always about Jesus, but the church is the vehicle, right? They're not searching for answers about Jesus. They're searching for local faith communities. That's where you can say, here's where you fit in. Which brings us to step 2. So now you've got the foundation. You know what your website should do. You know the pages you need on your site. You kind of know the framework. And then you know the content that needs to go on your site. What am I going to say about my church? How are we going to invite someone in? Now, you're not going to so much design your website, but you're going to construct it. All right. Church website design doesn't need to be staring at a blank page and crafting a blueprint, which then crafts into a mock-up. It's more like Legos. You're going to take blocks and put them together in a way that matches the content you just wrote, but also accurately reflects your church. Because I can make a Lego truck. It's not going to look like anyone else's Lego truck. Okay. So if you don't view it as construction, you're going to take someone else's design, someone else's template, and you're going to try to make your church fit into their box. And you're not going to have an accurate representation of who your church is. You're also going to look and sound like everyone else. Because I'll tell you right here, just on the back end of something, when we have something that really works well and we template it, a funny thing happens. People tend to make their church website off the template. It tends to sound more like the original church that we created the design for, and not so much like the church that's using the template. So if you don't view it as construction and you try to just design something, you're going to, again, kind of sound like everyone else. And not only that, I'm going to share with you how you can not get stuck in revision hell. Because if you're designing a website, You're designing all the elements, and there's always something else that you can put in. There's always something else you can do. But if you construct, I'm either going to run out of Lego pieces or the construction's done. I don't need to put anything else because this truck doesn't need a spoiler. Maybe it already does if I have the Lego pieces. So if you're designing something, you can constantly get stuck trying to iterate it. But if you're constructing it, once you know the plan, you put it together, you're done. So here's how you can construct your church website without copying on other churches or relying on other gimmicks like special designs and animations. None of that stuff matters. Sorry to tell you. Here's how you can construct your website. 3 simple phases. You can build your website in a week like we do, or you can do it in 30 days, but I guarantee it'll be a lot faster than if you try to design it yourself. Follow these 3 steps. Number 1, focus on your homepage first. Your homepage is your first impression, right? It is the first impression. And when someone has that first impression, you don't want to bog them down with all the things your church is doing. If I came to you in the store and I said, oh man, I really wish I had a good church to go to. Justin, do you know any? I would not say, oh, well, you're welcome to come to our church, or you come to VBS, or you can listen to a sermon online if you want. You can check that out first. We have our latest sermon. Then we also have a sermon archive, and we've also got prayer. We can pray for you online. Would you like to sign up for our newsletter? That way you can stay up to date. Whoa, I just got anxious myself. But if you said that to me and I said, absolutely, we meet Sundays at 9:30 and I'm very excited for you to come. Can I pick you up? Can I send you some more information? All with the goal to get someone in that building. Now, for many churches, again, it's going to be plan a visit, what to expect. That's going to be your single step that you want people to take. But it could also be something else if that's something that God has given you that entry point for. And on your homepage, like you saw with the last church that I scrolled through real quick, you're giving your church at a glance, meaning you're just highlighting the most important aspects of your church that impact the most people. So social media has trained us to scroll through a homepage. When we want to learn information, we want to scroll. So you got to give them something to scroll. And then throughout that scrolling, you can give them things to click, which should be that single step. Then after you get your homepage done, then you build out your core pages. Okay. Your about page, your give page, your ministry information page. Okay. Follow the framework that you created in step 1. Then you take care of the important pages first, which is like the secondary pages, right? Like we need a kids ministry page. We need a leadership page. Okay. But only do that when you set a deadline. Set a deadline. I do it a third time because it's that important. Set a deadline. And the reason why the framework works so well is because once you develop those core pages, the 5 core pages, home, about, plan a visit, give, and your ministries page, then you can launch your website with just that. And you're going to make a good first impression and get people coming to church. All the other stuff is secondary. So get those pages done first, and then you can take care of those more important secondary pages, your sermons, your events, okay? Set a deadline. And if you don't get that information, launch the website anyways. Now, we'll talk about launching in the next step. Because if you set a deadline, 2 things happen. Number 1, your church website, it's going to get launched on that day no matter what. And you're no longer in revision hell. Number 2, you're not going to be waiting for people to get you content. Hey, pastor, tell me what you want on the youth ministry page. If he knows it's going to launch March 31st, he's going to get you that information by March 31st. Deadlines create content. That's true for anything. Okay. So set a deadline. And then this is a little challenging, but trust me. The third step to constructing your website, once you have your homepage and your main pages, revise and review in one single pass. You're going to do one sweep of revisions. You cannot get into revision hell if you do not open that door. So you're going to say, and people pay us thousands of dollars, and this is what we do. Okay. It's not a cheap thing. It's an efficiency thing. You're going to say, we're going to launch our church website on March 31st, pick a week or 2 before that. Everything needs to be submitted by that date. And we're going to do 1 round of revisions and choose someone to have a final say. So pastor, I mean, ideally it's you who's building the website. Unfortunately, some churches, they want it to be the pastor or the XP. Someone gets the final say. So there's no more of this, well, youth pastor, we're not going to put this on here because it's irrelevant. And then they say, well, I'm going to tell someone, person who gets the final say needs to be the one to have the final say. And then set a deadline for the revisions. Okay. Again, things don't happen unless there's a deadline. It's an unfortunate truth of the world. So if you say, we're going to have all the content in by March 14th, we're going to have all the revisions done by March 25th, and we're going to launch March 31st. I just made up some dates there. You will have your website launched because you will have deadlines that make you do it. So start with the homepage, single step, church at a glance. It's your positive first impression. Then build out the secondary pages. Then do one round of sweeping revisions. Get it all done at once. I'm going to share with you an example here. This is church in South Florida. This is the one that I told you went from 3 guests a month to 30. And this is after a year. So, I mean, it wasn't overnight. Shouldn't be overnight. That'd probably break your church. So we have the scrolling web page. Okay. Now we do have a secondary step. This is advanced. When you're just starting out, just do the one plan your visit. You'll notice here we did it on Stonewater, just the one step. Okay. Plan a visit. Plan a visit. And of course we highlight it because this is optional. So scrolling at a glance, right? We understand what it's like to be you. We have ministries for the whole family. God is at work here. Okay. Here's that secondary step and more you-focused content. But just by scrolling through this site, you kind of get a feeling for what this church is about. It's about deliverance. It's about freedom. It's about being let go from your chains, your shackles. Okay. Then we've got the secondary pages. Plan a visit, right? Wouldn't you love to plan a visit and be part of our church? We've got the leadership page. Okay. We've got the ministry pages. We've got the sermons page and all that stuff. Like, this is all good. All right. So we start with the homepage. We build the secondary pages. And by the way, all these resources, none of this, we didn't launch with many of these. I think the only thing we launched with was the podcast and events. Everything else came later. So don't be overwhelmed like, oh, well, Justin launched it with 20 pages now. We launched it with like 7. Most of our website clients launch with 7. And then we iterate past that. So that's the homepage. That's the core pages. And yes, even with all this content, we made a one pass. If this was misspelled, we'd write it down. We didn't change it and go back for approval. We wrote it down and we kept it and we did one sweeping pass. It also saves a lot of time. Speaking of efficiency. So that is step 2, construction. Finally is optimization. And my wife is texting me. Let me tell her I'm on a call real quick. All right. Lastly is optimization, meaning you got to optimize your site to launch good, and then you got to keep it optimized. If you don't plan for optimization, if you don't plan to constantly improve your church website, Google's not going to care about you, because if you don't care about your website, why should Google recommend you? So if they're not going to recommend you, you're going to be harder to find online. If you don't optimize your website properly, your website's probably not going to launch well. Broken buttons are going to be broken. Brokens are going to be buttons. So you don't want that to happen. And things might go down. Last thing you want to do is have your emails go down. That's a nightmare. And then you won't have any data to make decisions. You'll be driving decisions off of I feel. And the last thing you want to be is the guy that says, well, I feel like this isn't working. Well, can you show me why? Nah, it's just a feeling. That doesn't work in ministry. We need to have fact-driven decisions made in ministry. And so to have proper optimization, you have to implant those things. So here's how to optimize your website without getting an advanced degree in marketing. I don't even have that. And if I can do this, you can do this too. Again, we're going to do it in 3 actions here. We're going to optimize, launch, and improve. We're going to do your final setup. And you can go to YouTube, Google for tutorials if you do this on your own. Nothing wrong with that. You want to put Google Analytics at the minimum on your site. If you want to get fancy like we do, we use the Google tag. So we put one piece of code on your website, keeps it fast. And then that tag launches all the other analytics, Google, Search Console, Facebook, Microsoft Clarity, there are a whole bunch of stuff. That's all advanced stuff. But at the minimum, Google Analytics. Then you want to have what's called on-page SEO. You want to make sure that your church website reads like a church website. Welcome to our church. Worship with us. Connect in our ministries. All this language that you use are called keywords, and they tell Google we're a church. So when people are searching for churches, show our church. You want to make sure you have business information at the bottom, your address, a map, your phone number, email. And you want to have, if you want to get fancy, you can have schema markup. It's some HTML code, but you can find websites that generate it for you. Finally, set it up properly. You're going to stand out from the rest of churches in your area, and Google's going to love you and recommend you more. It's called a search engine optimization. And then you want to have what we call a laid back launch. Why is it laid back? Because you got all your content done. You set a deadline. You don't got to do anything else right now, because right now your only focus is launching it. And by the way, you probably already stress test, which you should have done in the setup. Make sure all your buttons are working, links are working, images are loading. So all that's done. So all you got to do is launch it. And when you've done all that already, the launch becomes easy. Super secret tip here, launch on a Monday night, because you don't want to launch on like Thursday or Friday, because people are searching for churches, high traffic those days, especially Saturday. Never launch on a Saturday. But you also don't want to launch on a Sunday night, because Monday morning, if there are any issues, you're going to wait in line with everyone else that had website issues over the weekend. So let them fight for Monday. You launch on Monday night when traffic is still low. And if there are problems and you need to call your domain host or your web host or whatever, they're going to be less busy on Tuesday. Just a tip. And the only thing you have to do at this point is log into your domain host. If you don't know how to do this, you can go to Google, or I'll show you some information later on that might help you. You just go to your domain host and just tell it, hey, instead of pointing to our old website, point to this new one. That's it. That's all you got to do. Everything else on your website's taken care of. The design's done. The content's done. All the buttons work. All the images are loading. You're ready to tell Google, here we are. Okay. Once you do that, the switch takes typically overnight. Now, they tell you 24 to 48 hours. They're supposed to tell you that. But realistically, nowadays, ever since like 2018, websites are pretty much switched over overnight, especially small church websites. Now, if you got 5,000 pages on your website, it'll take a little bit longer, but your typical church website is done overnight. So you eat dinner, move your domain over, you wake up, it's live. In case anything doesn't happen though, I can't tell you enough how many times people make the switch and then never check it. And then they realize several days later it's not working. Check it the next morning. And then lastly, this is long-term, monitor and optimize. Add your church to the Google Search Console so you can see how people are finding your church through Google. Review your analytics monthly so you can see what people are clicking on, what pages they're staying on, how long they're watching, how long they're staying, how many people come to your website, don't do anything and leave. That's called bounce rate. And then you can make data-informed decisions. And some of those decisions I'll share with you here in this example. You have views over time, so you can see when people are using your website, when is traffic the highest. You can see how many new visitors you have versus how many returning visitors you have. So you know, are you reaching new people or are you reaching the same people? And then you have other stats that didn't fit on the page, but like on-page time, how long is the average person spending on your website? Click-through rates, what web pages are the most popular for your church website? For many churches, it's the homepage, the leadership page, the sermon page. And then you've got bounce rate. How many people are coming to your website and then leaving without doing anything? Many people, the first time they look at this, if they haven't done anything, their church website bounce rate's around 60 to 70%. The golden number is 30%. So as you can see, like when we launched this site, we're still optimizing it because it's 38, it's 36. That's pretty great. We're going to get it down to 30. Or we did, because this is older numbers. And then you want to see, you know, where people are coming from. What are people searching to find you? And that's all inside of Google Search Console. So you can then lean into those. You don't want to try to make up for lost ground. Just be there where people are searching. If you've got 1 million hungry people in your church, but everyone's wearing clothes, don't open a clothing closet Open a food pantry. And if people aren't searching for biblical-based preaching near me, but they're searching friendly church near me, then position your church to, unless you're not friendly, then don't do this. Position your church to be the friendly church and be found as the friendly church. So that's the 3 steps. The foundation, get a solid foundation, get a plan together, get a framework together. Focus on constructing your website, not designing it, construct it using the framework you built, and then set it up for long-term success by optimizing it for Google to love and for you to constantly iterate it to continue to improve it, improve those numbers on the analytics, and improve the engagement on your church website. Okay. Web design used to be about figuring it out. But if you follow this new way, you're going to have watch the video again, screenshot the slides, step by step. You don't have to figure it out. Just check off the boxes. The old way used to include a Cheesecake Factory website where you just had everything on there and you hoped someone would pick something. Now you can build a complete website, minimize the distraction, minimize the clutter, and guide people to take a next step. Guide them to plan a visit. You don't have to hope they do it. You can confidently guide them to plan a visit to your church. And then you don't have to follow random internet advice. Oh, the Hormozi's talking about this. Shearer's talking about this. Right now, media said that we should do this. But if you intentionally launch your website and continue to optimize it, you will have more people coming to your church. And this is the same method that I used for these pastors in these churches and dozens other like it that is bringing people to their church. I know it feels like you're drinking from a fire hydrant, but I want to take all of this and focus it for you. Okay. You need someone on your side. And no, I'm not selling you anything right now. Don't click off yet. What I want to do is I want to give you clarity. And clarity is not going to come from more software. It's not going to come from another course. It's going to come from walking alongside someone that's been there, done that, and give you the exact next steps you need to take. Maybe you're in a situation where you can't edit the software and you just need some recommendations. You can do it. You know what to do now. You just need to know what platform to do it on. We can discuss that. Maybe you think your website's aligning with some of this stuff, but there's just a few elements that aren't in place that maybe if you just get those last elements in place, the floodgates can open. We can help with that. And maybe you don't have time for this. Like, I know the website's important. Justin, help me out. We can absolutely talk about that. But the important thing is you can't do this alone. Satan, the enemy, loves it when we're alone. And if you're trying to tackle this website thing alone, you don't have someone. Even Jesus sent out his disciples 2 by 2, right? You can't do this alone. So I want to help you figure out what the best next step is. Our specialty is support, relationships. Our specialty is getting on the phone and pointing you in the right direction. This is not some generic strategy call. Oh, let's figure out what we can do. And the answer is always buy our website. That's not what this is, right? I want to make sure that you have the right tools, the right direction, whether that looks like let's help you with your existing site. Let's build a new one. Let's point you in the right direction. I want you to give us a call, 832-861-7654. The number should be on the screen. It's not, but you can go to navachurchmarketing.com/next steps and you can book a time on my calendar and let's figure out what we need to do to get your website bringing people to your church. Or you can just shortcut it and call 832-861-7654. God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. Again, go to that. There's a button down below. I'll have a button down below, and you can click that and go get some clarity on what you should do next. God bless.